Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today we're back mock drafting for an additional episode this week on top of our normal lineup here. I was unable to do a subscriber mock on Saturday morning for you guys, so today that's what we're doing. We've got some members of the community Discord and the SFS subscribers joining us today. Two of the participants in today's video will win a draft guide, and all you have to do in the future for the rest of this offseason is head down to the link in the description of today's video to hop in that Discord and be able to join these, and then you will be eligible to then win a free draft guide by simply participating with me here in these mocks. So today, a bit of a challenge for some people that haven't typically been a part of 16-team leagues. I'm certainly game for it. I can't wait to get going here, so we're going to hop right into the draft board and get things kicked off with that number 1 overall pick. We don't quite have a full lineup today. It's a Saturday. People are busy, but that's all right. Let's see. We've got myself and Eric in here. If you see the profile pic there for Eric, you love yourself some Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky morphed into one human face there. A little bit of a joke as he's a Bears fan. And a quick note on the Bears as we get right into today's video. How about Justin Fields? What a day for him. He went 14 of 20, I believe it was, 142 yards passing, 2 total touchdowns, carried the ball 5 times for 33 yards as well. He looks everything the part. So, Chicago sports fans, you've got something to be excited today or about today. We have yet to see. This video is being recorded early on Saturday afternoon. It's about 3 p.m. Central Time here right now. I contemplated live streaming, but I just posted an offline mock today, so I didn't want to overdo it with the mock drafts in one day, but fingers crossed, you guys. Justin Fields. I wish Justin Fields. Jordan Love for my Green Bay Packers. You see Randall Cobb in the background there. I'm a huge Packer fan, die hard. I have been my entire life. We'll see what he's got. It's been over a year in the making here. Who knows? Can he play? Will he suck? I went to Packers camp and he was throwing the best football you've ever seen sometimes, and then the next throw was a complete duck and just ugly pass. So we'll see what happens if he can put it all together, be consistent here again. So as I got into in the beginning of today's episode, this is a 16-team mock. I haven't put out one of these on the channel before, but we're certainly going to give it a try here, our best effort. You can either look at it here with me drafting 16th overall as a challenge because I don't get to pick and I'm letting everyone else choose their player before I get my crack at the board. But you can also look at it as I have the best value, because I get 2 top 17 players, whereas, yes, Team 1 down here gets Christian McCaffrey, or Dalvin Cook, rather, is who went here. But they also have to wait until the 32nd overall pick to make their second choice. So here we go. The 116 draft pick. I think I definitely need to take running backs here. Let's see what the wide receiver group looks like. Oh, this is a tough choice. This is a full PPR league, by the way. So I think right now, just looking at the board, Austin Eckler is a no-brainer here. Obviously, being a full PPR format, the dude, I call him Mini McCaffrey. There's a reason for that. The kid catches passes like you wouldn't believe. 6.5 targets per game in his 10 starts last year. That's pretty uncharted territory for anyone outside of Alvin Kamara, especially in that few of games. And as a player who's actually viable as a rusher, you see J.D. McKissick have those type of numbers, but he's not really doing any work in the running game. So we'll take Eckler there. The clock's about to wind down. Don't want to get missed out and auto-drafted here and jumped by that computer. So I think Eckler would have been the auto-draft selection regardless, and I could have just removed whoever was my auto-draft pick from the board, but that's besides the point. It's a new me in today's video. If you've been watching the episodes here, I get auto-drafted quite frequently because I talk a lot and then ultimately forget I'm on the clock. So, man, already down to 30 seconds here, trying to keep things moving a bit quickly today as we do have an extra number of picks on the board to make. The choice for me, I've been deciding here back and forth. I'm either going DK Metcalf or Najee Harris. And for me, the clear best player at their position is a DK Metcalf, but in a 16-team league, do I really want to wait and see who the RB2 for my lineup can be? I think I have a unique situation here where I can get a positional advantage or depth at the running back spot that I don't think a lot of other teams would do. In a 12-team league, I just want to clarify, I'm not doing this. I am not making this draft pick. I'm probably going DK Metcalf there every time. I've got them very closely rated in my draft guide rankings, which you can check out on sizzlefantasy.com. You can see that up on your screen right now. sizzlefantasy.com/draft-guide. That's how you get there. And then obviously the winners of today's giveaway will get access to that bundle collection with the Dynasty Guide included as well. But going back to positional scarcity and the reasoning for making that Najee Harris pick that early, don't get me wrong. And you see Eric here, the other expert on the channel, making a similar choice that I made. And I think that's an even tougher choice for him than it was for me. Because personally, I have Najee Harris rated one spot higher than Antonio Gibson on my draft guide rankings. I chose to go running back and double down there as opposed to drafting a DK Metcalf who could be a top 5 player at his position. But you're also risking the fact that when that board comes all the way back, I mean, granted, there's 30-some picks going off the board here in between my selections. So I got to be super careful about what choices I make, be really conservative in my approach here, because taking some risky gambles here and reaching up the board too far early on could be really costly and come back and bite you late. So I think Eric also was kind of having his hand forced into drafting a running back, because our strategy here at the SFS channel is to hit that position well early and give yourself a well-rounded group with some top-end players. Eric went Calvin Ridley in the first round. A great draft pick there nonetheless. And to be quite honest, in my draft rankings, in a video I made previously, I stated Calvin Ridley is my wide receiver 5 this season and DK Metcalf is my wide receiver 6. So he made the choice there based on who was the top-rated receiver on the board. But he might just be the best overall player in terms of raw overall point outage. And when I take 2 running backs off the board, he almost has no choice. So maybe had Eric went Austin Eckler and based his draft pick a little bit more centered around who he thinks I might have taken there, he could have snatched up an Eckler and then maybe still gotten Antonio Gibson. You never know. It would have completely changed how the board played out here nonetheless. But by me taking 2 running backs there, the point I'm trying to make is that following the SFS draft strategy, he pretty much had to take the next best running back available, because he really would have been looking weak at the running back spot had he waited till rounds 3 and 4. Because I'm not so sure, that our next top running backs being Chris Carson and David Montgomery, there's a long ways to go here on the board as we're scrolling over, because Sleeper Fantasy can't keep all of the picks up on the screen here in these 16 team leagues rather. The 12-team leagues even cut off about a third of the final draft spot, whether it be the 1 or the 12, whatever way I scroll my screen to. But we definitely have to do some scrolling to fit everyone on the board there. And here you see it. Chris Carson and David Montgomery are no longer, and I am very glad I got my running backs now when I did. Let's take a peek here to see how many teams have already gotten 2 running backs. 3 teams were able to snatch up, or 4 if you count myself. So only a quarter of the teams were able to do what I prefer, and that is draft 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds. Now that's a 12-team strategy, but I think that sets you up for the best success here. And while you see Team 5, they've got 2 very good wide receivers on top of Derrick Henry. You see here Team 9, Ezekiel Elliott's a fantastic pick. You get 2 nice receivers to pair with him. I still don't think you're going to be looking very nice at that RB spot when it comes back to you in the 4th round, when you've got 16 more picks going off the board. So it just kind of elevates the urgency to draft positions where you have scarcity for finding players. I think that being such a deep position, it makes me all that more prone to fade the wide receiver early and try and capitalize later on in that position, because there's a lot of sleepers I like late and deep down the draft board. So I'm excited to see how this thing turns out. I'm extremely happy with my first 2 picks. I think Eckler, being a PPR machine, sets me up very well off the bat. And then the upside Najee Harris has to be a top-end RB1 could really pull this wagon here the whole season if this were to be converted into a league. And we'll see that go on later on. So let's check out the top players on the board right now. That's crazy that Kyle Pitts is the best player based off ADP. Waller and Kittle both go in the late 2nd. And dang, there goes Kyle Pitts. That's pretty early. I might take Travis Etienne here if he falls to me. And I might snatch up a tight end as well. So I'm going to do the exact opposite of yesterday's video. Yesterday, I did not draft a tight end in my mock draft, and that might sound crazy to you, But the farther and farther I got down the board, the more and more I realized I just didn't like the value, and the wide receivers that were falling to me were so good. I basically explained that being in the second week of August right now, heading into the third week, there's 3.5, 4 weeks until the season starts. And, Eric, you had to take ETN from me. I feel like he's listening. That's how I always feel when I say it here, even being offline, and then when my players get drafted off the board from me. I love the receiver value so much, and I explained that having so much time to just simply watch preseason games, gather information from camp, and choose a different player off the waiver wire, because there were still plenty of starting NFL tight ends on the waivers that just didn't get drafted at teams, and I figured that maybe some cuts would happen from teams regardless either way. I got to make a pick here, but we'll get back to the point I was making in a hot sec. Okay, Hawk is still there. I might be able to wait just a little bit on him. Oh boy, wide receivers. Not loving the wide receivers. Oh boy, not loving them either. Uh-oh, tick-tock, tick-tock. All right, we're going to have to go Mark Andrews there because I didn't want to get auto-pick someone I really didn't want. I think I'd rather have well, the value here, the ADP tells you that, let's see, can I remove that? You know what? We're gonna cheat in today's mock draft. That's not nice of me, but since I didn't want to run the clock out, we're going TJ Hawkinson. That might seem incredibly early. Uh-oh. Look what I've done. There we go. A little bit of an issue there. So essentially, I have TJ Hawkinson ranked as the higher player, and I didn't want to get auto-drafted someone and then have it turn auto-pick on for me, because then I would have had no way to get the player I wanted, and it would have just flown past me there. So I apologize for that little inconvenience for those of you guys who are watching this after the fact that are participating in today's mock draft. But having 60 seconds on the clock is more so that the board goes quickly enough that we can get through this in under an hour, which would be optimal, of course. But then at the same time, when I'm talking through my picks and such, it goes incredibly fast, and that's how I get auto-picked a lot. So once again, it's not a new me. It's the same Gavin from SFS getting auto-picked on a weekly basis. So essentially what I was saying with the tight end point I was making, and then I'll get to my picks here, is that I had plenty of time to find another streaming tight end option prior to the start of the NFL season. And with there being tight end ones for NFL teams on the waivers, I had my options. And guys like Blake Jarwin, Eric Ebron, Pat Freiermuth, either of those guys could be starters. OJ Howard is out there. I'm forgetting some names, but there was starting quality players on the waivers for me to pick up. Prior to injuries and whatnot, some of those guys were having really solid seasons last year. And you look at Robert Tonyan, finished as tight end 3 last year, came off the waiver wire. Logan Thomas, I believe, was tight end 9, came off the waiver wire. My point here is that tight end is one of the easiest and most interchangeable positions on a week-to-week basis because of how hard it is to project those floors. There is a multitude of things that can happen. In one year, you might find a quality producing tight end, and the next year, to be blunt, they suck. So it's kind of a guessing game. The really only guys I think that give you locked in and solidified production are the top 6 tight ends off the board, who are already all gone in today's episode. You see I took TJ Hawkinson at the last pick in the 3rd round. Mark Andrews goes here within the first 6 picks of the 4th round. Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, Pitts, they're all gone after that. The reasoning in getting into my pick here that I went with TJ Hawkinson is basically my whole philosophy behind yesterday's video was the fact that after those first 6 tight ends go, again, I don't feel any guarantees with the production I'm getting. And of course, any of these players could get hurt or not be healthy, get COVID protocols. Any number of things can happen to them. But I feel like these are the ones with the most solidified floor, proven production outside of Kyle Pitts, who I think is a major bust candidate. But the ceiling does make him an acceptable pick, I think, as the 6th tight end off the board. But Hawkinson in a PPR league, the reason that I took Andrews off the table and went the Hawkinson route is that I just expect TJ to get peppered with targets this year. That's simply what it comes down to. Neither of those 2 players are elite athletes. They are not players who are going to razzle-dazzle, give you a flash after the catch, and be these just all-world producers. They are just players who have large size, are using the red zone. That's pretty much Mark Andrews' bread and butter right there. He only had 89 targets last year, but finished as tight end 5. And they're just they're on teams where there's so few competition for target share. They're going to get their numbers. Mark Andrews had 25% of the Ravens' target share last season. I forget the number off the top of my head for Hockenson, but he was tight end 4, finished north of 100 targets. And with no more Kenny Galladay and with no more Marvin Jones, Galladay. I hate how I just said that word. Galladay. No bueno. Galladay. I think that he is in for a massive target share season with Jared Goff, not wanting to be pushing the ball downfield to unproven names. Someone is going to step up in that fray at the wide receiver position, but it's kind of a smoky read as to who that is. Tyrell Williams had a few nice catches in the preseason. He had one nice back shoulder toe tap, but it's been 5 years since he's had a 1,000-yard season, and he didn't play at all last year. Amon-Ra St. Brown looks like a really promising rookie, but he was only a 4th-round draft pick, and I really like him. He's a nice sleeper candidate. I might end up just picking him in today's video. We'll see. That's yet to be seen here. But the point is that Hockenson is the most proven name. He's been on the team the longest of the pass catchers. I mean, well, was Quintez Cephas there? No, I think Hawkinson's a year before Quintez Cephas, if not the same year. And then I should know this because I'm a Wisconsin Badger fan. As you can see, I'm wearing a Badger shirt today. And I don't even know which year our probably last receiver taken in the draft was selected. I believe he was also a 5th or 6th round pick. He was a later selection. He's a bit scrawny for an NFL receiver, but he has some nice upside too. Someone's got to step up. That's the point I'm making here. And if they don't, that means all the more looks for Hockenson. I would argue DeAndre Swift has immense potential this year, but the dude just can't stay healthy. He's dealing with a groin issue right now. Here, I'll find him. He just went off the board. Well, not just, but I think he went in the 2nd round, I want to say. Maybe I'm wrong. Yes, here he is. View player card. Michael Warren is 2nd on the team's depth chart. That's news to me. I gotta check that out. That's interesting. That's really weird. There's no issues on his. Oh yeah, in the big bold letters, continuing rehab on groin 4 hours ago. Wow. Okay, I'm a great reader, guys. Can you tell? Let's see what Eric makes of this pick here, and then I'll get to my Robert Woods pick, and I'll have 2 more picks to talk about. You see, I can't even break down my draft choices in the entire 16 selections that happened before my next pick, and here we are just beginning to look at the board. Man, this is bad. This is insane that in a 12-team league, these would be 7th or 8th round picks for me, but in today's video, I'm literally looking at them as my 5th rounders. Wow. The scarcity or the quickness that the depth falls off the board is insane in these formats. Wow. I'm looking at a wide receiver 2 right now, and none of these guys are sure things whatsoever. Full PPR league here. I'm pretty sure I'm content with one of these picks. I just want to make sure I know what route I'm going for the second one, just to make sure I don't need to pivot. So my safest option is where we're going to go here. It seems so weird that I just took Robbie Anderson in the 5th round, but it's the same territory as the other players, and I do have him ranked, I believe, 1 spot ahead of Cortland Sutton in my rankings. He's going to lead the team in targets this year again. I just foresee that with Sam Darnold in town, with the fact that they already have chemistry from New York, I should really not be breaking this pick down right now because I'm going to run out of time again, but I just think that he'll outpace DJ Moore. And yes, maybe DJ Moore has a higher ceiling, but I think the floor is safer for Anderson, and his ceiling is probably just as close to that marker as you could possibly get. So I feel comfortable with that pick there. Having him and Robert Woods are not flashy picks, but they are 2 picks I feel pretty comfortable with. See, I would like to go Michael Carter here, but it seems a tad early. Don't love that pick. I might just end up going the Trey Sermon route since I've already got... Yep, that's what we went. Time's up. I made the pick. It usually gives you like a good quality second after it says time up to make your choice. So it was kind of an internal battle for me, and I go back and forth with this, particularly in the full PPR leagues. I'm always Trey Sermon over Michael Carter in non-full PPR leagues because Michael Carter's strengths push the pendulum more towards PPR leagues, Whereas Trey Sermon, I see a lot of touchdown upside and a lot of pure rushing stats, which obviously points you more towards half PPR and standard. In those leagues, it's no question. And in general, it's no question who has the higher ceiling of the two. That is Trey Sermon. He plays in a better offense. He has a better offensive line. He has a better quarterback situation, whether you go Trey Lance or if you go Jimmy Garoppolo. In my opinion, I think that Zach Wilson is set up for failure. And I would say that the Jets are my second favorite team. And yes, it's kind of weird to have a second favorite team. 1,000% Packers over Jets any day of the week. But we obviously leave that aside from our fantasy analysis here. I just think that you should have went Justin Fields. You should have went Trey Lance. Put the players, I think, who have less potential flaws and holes in their game. And Zach Wilson, his upside is insane. But I'd rather see Zach Wilson in a 49ers jersey with a great offensive head coach in Kyle Shanahan, who I feel confident and comfortable in how they can develop a quarterback. Whereas Robert Saleh, that guy was dang good as a 49ers defensive coordinator. He completely ate up my Packers a bunch of times over. But I think that when you've got a dysfunctional organization, a bad front office, they seem to be pointing things back in the right direction. I mean, I loved the picks they made this year with Michael Carter, Elijah Moore. All that stuff is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to hate on my Jets here. But I think that with all those things being said, having a defensive coordinator transition into a head coach, who's going to be developing Zach Wilson? And yes, you've got a strong offensive coordinator. You've got a big support room of QB coaches and all these offensive personnel. But I think there just needs to be more. Something has to change. What is the difference here from Sam Darnold to Zach Wilson? Both are immensely talented. Both have awesome arm talents, are athletic, can make the big plays. But there's got to be someone who cleans up that job, makes the process of transitioning easier for them and whatnot. So Trey Sermon nonetheless. Somehow we got on the topic of quarterbacks. Not even really sure how I started that conversation. But Trey Sermon's got the higher upside of the two. He's not going to be catching passes at as high of a rate as a Michael Carter will be, who there he goes off the board there at the 6'8". That's pretty dang good value for him if you ask me. I just feel like although he is my third running back and I don't love it because I'm going to have to be starting two flexes in this league, he probably won't start for me early on, but I do think that both him and Raheem Mostert can have a very, very prominent role despite the fact that they'll both be out there. If Mostert's unhealthy and misses games, well, running back one, Trey Sermon's an RB1. Then it's not debatable who the better option is. But in situations where they're both on the field, it's a bit closer. I think Michael Carter has a clear-cut path to the RB1 spot in New York, but we'll see what happens here with that situation. So, seems a bit early to be taking a defense. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let's look back at the board here, though. Although they did draft the Rams, it's an incredibly early spot to do that. It is a 16-team league. We'll see what happens the rest of the way here. Zach Moss, I would love to take advantage of Moss. I don't think he's going to fall to me, though. Let's see what the... he could. There's only two auto-pick teams between myself and... between the current board and where I'm at. So... it's a chance that ADP doesn't bump him to team 13 or 14 if one of these four people, including Eric, who knows I love Zach Moss, doesn't take him. There's a chance for me, but we'll see what happens. It's probably important that I, at some point, begin to address wide receiver a bit more than I have. Robert Woods, I never explained that pick. The reasoning behind that is very simple. I feel very safe with his production. I've seen him get an insane amount of looks here. Let's peek at his targets really quick. I believe I found this stuff yesterday. Targets, here we go. Whew. I want the whole season. Can I look at the whole year? Where did I do that yesterday? Yes, right here. 2019, 139 targets. 2018, 130. A tick down last year, but 129. And he had a terrible quarterback offense. The Jared Goff situation was bad. What was the quarterback they were starting? I want to figure that out now. It's going to bother me if I don't know that. Can I just type in Rams? Will that get me where I want to go? No. And there goes Zach Moss. So that's not going to be an option for me. Let me know in the comment section below. I'll obviously figure it out after the video is over. But who was that weird quarterback that the Rams were starting when Jared Goff was injured last year? Let's see if I can just like scroll through the names here and figure out who that was. It's not Logan Woodside. I watched him just get murdered yesterday in the preseason, though. John Wolford. There he is. John Wolford was, I believe, the starting QB against the Seahawks, I want to say, and beat them in the wild card round. There's a bunch of weird stuff going on with the Rams last year. Sean McVay and Jared Goff clearly had some beef. He's in Detroit now. That's aside from the fact, I think that introducing Matt Stafford to that offense will not only up the ceiling value for Robert Woods, but that incredibly great floor value. You know, you've got the wide receiver run game, those jet sweeps, and all that good stuff going on there, and a strong ground game despite the fact that they're missing their top quarterback. So we'll see how that plays out. Eric going tight end, not exactly my favorite thing to do here. Although Logan Thomas doesn't look like a terrible option, I'm going to fade tight end for maybe another round or two and just keep soaking up value at other spots. Man, I like the idea of going to Deshaun Watson here, but I also just watched Justin Fields, and he looks like a stud. He won't start week 1, but dang, did he look good. Gotta make some other picks here. It becomes a question as this player is likely going to start for me. Which player would I rather have in my starting lineup? Depth is going to be a serious issue in this league for all teams involved. It is going to be interesting to see the names that are going late on this draft board. Man. You know what? I'm gonna draft 2 wide receivers here that I think both have quality lineup value towards me. Rashad Bateman, we'll break it down here. I've got some time. So Bateman is out with a groin issue. They dodged a major bullet in Baltimore because he fell down while running a slant route, limped off the field. I think everyone, myself included, I was in the car at the time driving, so on a road trip. I thought he was done for the year. I was pretty devastated about that because I'm a huge Rashad Bateman fan. Although I'm a Badger fan, I still respect my boys from Minnesota. Rashad Bateman, beast. You look at Tyler Johnson, he's pretty dang good as well for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He just never sees the field because he's playing with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Antonio Brown. But the reasoning behind those 2 draft picks is I am kind of testing my luck to see if I can get incredibly lucky and get Elijah Moore in the next round. That's probably not going to happen because it looks like he's the number 3 wideout on the board, and this is an incredibly deep league right now. But Rashad Bateman will take over at some point as the number 1 wideout in the Ravens offense. And it seems a little bit counterproductive. Well, actually, we ended up switching from Andrews to Hawk. I was going to say it seems a little bit underproductive to have 2 players in my starting lineup from the same team, and especially one with a low passing volume. But Bateman just does everything. He runs the whole route tree. He's one of the most complete wide receivers in this past season's draft class. And I think that Lamar Jackson can finally take that next step that we've been waiting for him to do as a passer, because now he finally has a diversified unit to work with. Look at Rashad Bateman. He could be a legitimate number 1 wide receiver in this league. Then you turn around and look at a Marquise Brown. He can stretch the field. Mark Andrews, that's your red zone target. Sammy Watkins, the veteran in the room that can kind of be used as a do-it-all type player because he's been in the situations where he's had to make those types of plays. Devin Duvernay, he can stretch the field as well. They've got a couple other names there. I'm trying to think of James Prochet. He gets involved mostly on special teams, but he can be tossed in there every once in a while. He's just finally got more of a complete unit to work with. This is still a very young pass-catching room outside of Sammy Watkins and Mark Andrews, but Hollywood's entering, year 3 now. He should be a little bit more refined. He's a bit injury-prone, but I just like the situation there. I think Bateman, like I said, will eventually be the one and command the majority of the looks in that offense come late season. Let's just peek at the board here, see who's being drafted. Marvin Jones is a great pick there at the 8-8. Very underrated player this year, and there goes Elijah Moore, unfortunately. I should have known. No chance Elijah Moore is getting past my buddy Colton there, who is one of the most competitive players that I'm in a dynasty league with. Eric's in that one as well. Very, very good team. Colt's the defending champ there, so he knows what he's talking about with those young guns. And then Darnell Mooney here, I just talked about and was raving about Justin Fields. I want a guy who's paired and tied to him. Come late season, I want that Darnell Mooney, Justin Fields deep ball connection. Justin Fields looks like the real deal. He looks the part, he plays the part, he acts the part, and he prepares the part. I'm a Packer fan right now, literally showering a Bears quarterback in appreciation and, like, I respect the living you-know-what out of that guy. I mean, say what you want about Ohio State quarterbacks, he's the difference. He is the one player, I believe, and it's quite scary as a Green Bay fan with an old, angry Aaron Rodgers, that this 21-year-old quarterback might walk in and dominate for 12, 15 years. We'll see how consistent he can be. We'll see how high his ceiling and his upside is. We'll see how consistent he plays and what that gives to his floor. Now, this is fantasy speaking, but I'm talking right now actual NFL player production wise. I think the Bears will win a lot of games and have a lot of success, and the NFC North is certainly heating up big time with the introduction of Justin Fields there. Captain Kirk, they're not going anywhere. Jared Goff, they're not going anywhere. We'll see where the fate is up to Jordan Love to decide how far he can take the Packers over the next stretch of time, but it clearly looks as if the Bears are set up long-term the best in the North right now at the quarterback position. So I want that player. Darnell Mooney had 98 targets last year, should grow upon that this season. Now that he's a full-time starter and the number 2 option, as opposed to last year he was the number 3, but a lot of stuff to like there in Chicago. So I've only got 3 running backs. I have no tight ends, no quarterbacks. It's probably as good a time of any. Kirk Cousins had to be drafted there, really? Really? Eric and I are both fading quarterbacks, so I'm a little bit afraid. I might have waited too long, to be honest. I don't like the quarterback options I'm currently looking at. And see, Eric goes to the second tight end, and Eric's done that a couple times now. I'm not a big fan of that strategy. No offense, Eric. But I don't like drafting more than 1 tight end. It's just not my mojo. It's not where I like to go with my picks. A lot of receivers, but I just took a couple there. Starting to feel a bit better about that unit. Running back room is just trashed at this point. I might be just better off picking up handcuffs for Harris and Eckler super late, because this is a draft format where it'll be worth my while to take a Josh Kelly or to take a Benny Snell. Typically in a 12-team league, those guys aren't going to be very relevant or useful, but since the running back room is so bad and there's not really guys with standalone value anymore, I might just want to put insurance on the guys that I already have drafted that I think can be quality producers. So I'm going to go Fitzmagic here. As weird as that sounds, wow. Fitzmagic is my QB1 for this team. I've got Fitzmagic as a sleeper, but I haven't really put my money where my mouth is yet. I haven't went with him as my top quarterback in any league. I've picked him a lot as my QB2, and I love what he might be with Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin, but I haven't actually doubled down on that and done what I just did now and take him as the guy for my team. So we'll see here. We'll see what happens. I'm incredibly excited to watch that offense play out, but I think there's a lot of nonsense that can go on here. And actually, okay, so this is interesting. I'm going to go Evan Ingram here. And I didn't plan on taking tight end here. There were a couple receivers I liked, notably Amon-Ra St. Brown was still on the board there. Cole Beasley could be solid. Terrace Marshall is reportedly being force-fed. Matt Rule said that. Those words came out of his mouth so they can bring along his production quicker. This offense, I think, will be lethal next year. If they can retain everybody and if Sam Darnold finally reaches the heights of his game that we think he can be, this offense has the offensive personnel around him to just be a masterful work of art. Like, that is a weird thing to say. But Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall in the slot, that's an incredible wide receiver trio if those guys hit their ceilings. And then they're not the best at tight end, but they've got some players there. They've got some names that could do something. None of them will be stars. I think Tommy Tremble's a really quality blocker they just brought in. Who is Ian Thomas? He's probably a below average tight end, but he can make plays here and there. And then you've got CMC and Hubbard out of the backfield. It's just too good. I mean, they're not quite Tampa Bay level. They're not quite Dallas level, but they're pretty dang close if those guys all develop and come along. The reasoning with that Evan Ingram pick there at the 10-1 is I think that there was a bit, I hate to say this, but I think that the pressure was a little bit too much for Ingram, and I don't know if he's built upstairs to be the number one option in an offense. We saw him be a first-round pick, and he just didn't live up to expectations, plain and simple. He's one of the most athletic, the fastest, supposedly should be the best, one of the best, not the best, but top 5. Let's just give him that. He should be a top 5 move tight end, meaning a pass catcher in the NFL, but he clearly hasn't been that. He has butterfingers. Like, we should just take a picture of him doing the making a triangle to catch the football and just Photoshop a butterfinger on each of his fingers because he can't catch passes at a consistent level. But when he actually gets the ball in his hands in space, he's made some pretty costly drops too in the clutch. He's got the talent to get the job done. So my hope is that maybe with the reduced role, you've got Kenny Golladay, you've got Darius Shepard, you've got, yes, that's right, you've got Sterling Shepard. I always seem to get my Shepards mixed up with Darius Slayton. See, I knew I messed it up. For some reason, in my mind, it always goosed me up. Sterling Shepard, Darius Shepard was a chump for the Packers return game, and he basically fumbled a couple games away for the Packers and just made some costly decisions while he was a Packer. That's why I always say Darius Shepard instead of Darius Slayton. Every time. And then you've got Sterling Shepard, who, see, now I gotta fact check myself. I always get this messed up. Yeah, okay. I'm not crazy. Sterling Shepard is the Giants wide receiver. Sometimes I say, yes, that's what the issue is. Sometimes I say Sterling Sharp, who was a Packers legendary wide receiver. It just all gets mixed up upstairs. I don't know why it's those players for me, but every time. It's like Shepard and Slayton are so close together, and then Sterling and is the first name of both Sharp and Shepard, and just having Slayton, Sharp, Shepard, Sterling's, it all gets jumbled up in a big mess. But the point here, finally, getting down to this, what I've been trying to say for the better part of 3 minutes now. Evan Ingram should be the number 2 at best, or 3, probably most likely the 3 option in this passing offense. He's not going to be the go-to guy in the clutch. He's just going to be the guy that hopefully here, gets forgotten about by the defense, has a seam, can get the ball in his hands, run and score touchdowns. It's plain and simple as that. At this point in the draft, I've said this ad nauseum, all of these tight ends have an argument to be made why they have upside. It's just going to come down to whether or not they can actually reach their floors, which is what's going to make them a top 10 fantasy tight end. Every tight end can go out and catch 2 touchdown passes in a given week, but how often can you make up for that production and at least score 6-7 points when you don't score a touchdown? Not many players can do that. That's the difference we see. It's the difference between, are you getting the target share? Austin Hooper, I would argue, is not. Are you getting the target share where you're able to produce enough, even if you don't score a touchdown? It's a very rare thing for tight ends to do. Or are you scoring touchdowns like Robert Tonyan did last season at such a high clip that you can make up for your lack of volume? He only had 52 receptions, and over 20% of them were touchdown grabs. Actually, I'm going to do some quick maths right here. He had 52 catches and 11 touchdowns. So, boom, check it out. Actually, it'd be 11 divided by 52. 21.15% of his receptions were touchdown passes. You don't see that every day. That's a ridiculous volume. That's a ridiculous turnover rate. That's not realistic. That will not happen again. Mark my words. Robert Tonyan fans out there, Green Bay Packer fans who don't want to hear it, I'm here to be the voice of realism for my Packers this season. Aaron Rodgers won't throw 48 touchdown passes. It won't happen, guys. Touchdowns, it's safer if you just project a drop-off than an increase. If the numbers are below average, then it's okay to hope optimistically that we'll see improvement in that statistical category for fantasy. But if you're already at the top of the game for touchdown production and you don't have a sample size of 3+ years of those numbers, you can't legitimately say that's a part of their offensive game. The one player that comes to mind off the top of my head here, go Jacoby Myers at that first pick. I need a second quarterback option, so I'm just going to... Danny Dimes, Carson Wentz. It's a coin flip. Both of them are risky. Or I could go with the low ceiling, high floor play with Derek Carr. I don't believe in any of these offenses. I don't believe that much in any of these players. This is interesting. Oh boy. And we've got defenses going all over, scattered on the board here. I'm going to take my chances. I think I'm going to wait. Let's see. Yeah, I can deal with the defenses down there. We'll get to those in a second. I'm going to go Derek Carr. I'm going to pair a high floor with a low ceiling in Derek Carr with a high ceiling and low floor. So flip-flop those two for Fitzmagic. So I've got myself some sort of competency at that position and differing approaches there. What on earth was I talking about before that pick? Well, there you go. I completely drew a blank. Not really sure where I was going with any of this talk. Oh, I think I was talking about Robert Tonyan maybe and the inconsistent touchdown production. Oh, yes. I was basically, okay, the one name that comes to mind. Haha, I found it. So touchdowns are such an incredibly tough thing to project year over year. The one player who comes to mind, and again, this is not biased. Go look at the sample size. Here, I'll pull it up for you. You can see it firsthand. If you're just listening, run back to your phone, iPad, tablet, computer, whatever you're watching on today. Run back. We're looking for Devonte Adams. I'm going to show you something pretty cool here. Oh, wow. He went the 1-8 to Colton. I'm surprised Colton didn't pick a running back in the first round. That's unusual for him. All right. Just want to make sure I don't get auto-picked here. Excuse me. I'm still recovering from a cold, so I've been rather stuffy. Okay. Year-over-year production. Career numbers. Devonte Adams might be one of the most consistent touchdown producers in the league at any position, most definitely the wide receiver spot. Derrick Henry, arguably the last 3 years, has been that at the running back spot. But let's look at Devonte Adams. So since 2016, I forget the exact stat of how many. I want to say he has dang near. It's between like 60 and 63 total. Here, we can literally just do the math. I'm such a bonehead. Okay, so you look at his touchdowns. Where's the TD count? So he's injured in 2019. The Packers and Aaron Rodgers had pretty low numbers for passing touchdowns. But since 2016, I'm just adding things up on my calculator here. Boom. 58 touchdown receptions in the last 5 years. That means he's averaging over 10 reception TDs per season. He has a 18, a 13, and a 12 receiving touchdown season in those years. The outlier being 18 and 5, which were the last 2 years. One of them was abnormally higher than the rest of the group. The other was abnormally low. Even in that 2019 season, his yardage still got the job done. You look at 997, he missed some games, 127 targets. There you see, only 12 games played. He missed some time last year and still put up those numbers. There is no other realistic barrier to entry, and that's why he puts up those numbers. There's no one else stealing away that production. You might say, well, DK Metcalf's got this ridiculous size. He might score 18 touchdowns. Well, Tyler Lockett's pretty dang good too. Chris Carson's pretty dang good too. He catches receiving touchdowns. He's using the red zone as a rusher. Look at the tight ends. Russ Wilson throws to them in that area of the field. Now, Devontae will not score 18 touchdowns again this season, but what he will do is probably put up 10 plus, because when for the last 5 seasons he's done just that, I feel comfortable saying that that's an expectation we can have for him. But when you look at Tyreek Hill, the numbers might not be quite as consistent. I want to peek at, I'm about to go up on the clock here, but I want to look at Derrick Henry over the last 3 seasons since he had that breakout year in 2018. Should be right down here. Boom, 17, 16, 12. There you go. 3 straight seasons in a row of consistent above average touchdown production, 12 or more TDs every year in that 3-season time span. So that is a player where it's an example of somebody that we can expect to put up a high touchdown count. Great pick there by Eric. Xavier Jones is a very good sleeper draft choice. All right, it's time to pick my defense here. I don't feel great about the Chiefs, the Vikings, the Seahawks, the Saints, but I do like the Bears. Their secondary is pretty scarce, though, if I do say so myself. The Packers have a really good unit. Not speaking on a bias level, their sacks did drop a bit last year, which in turn their turnovers weren't fantastic, which kind of had an overall ding on the production. But let's see here. We've got 4 picks left to make. It might be worth my time. Let's see. I think I might pick a Tyrell Williams up right now. I should just go for it with my defense, though. I'm gonna take the Cardinals. So the reason I like Arizona is really nothing too special. If you can find a defense that has a very quality pass rush, you have a chance to pick a top 10 defense. It's as simple as that. I promise you the Cardinals will finish as a top 16 fantasy defense this year unless J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones get injured, which is very possible. But the pressure numbers they had last year, the fact that they add J.J. on top of Chandler Jones, who was missing, and they were still getting these interceptions, these turnovers, I mean, you've got some talented guys in the back end. Isaiah Simmons did not quite meet expectations last year, but trust me, the raw talent is still there. Budda Baker, exceptional safety. Their corners are lacking a little bit. They do have some quality number 2 corners. Pat P, obviously out of his prime and in Minnesota now, is out of the picture, but someone could step up. You never know. I think that the pressure packages they have there, though, are really what's keeping them in the fold and makes them promising targets here. And it looks like a reach to take Tyrell Williams, but in my opinion, the 14th round in a 16-team league is not a reach to take a guy who's penciled in as the number 1 on a team's depth chart. And although it wasn't anything too impressive, I did like what I saw from him, in a preseason game. So preseason games are not the end-all be-all. Please do not overreact to them. He's a 14th round pick here. What am I losing by taking a dart throw on a player that could be the top option in his offense, has had a 1,000-yard season, albeit I mentioned earlier on 5 years ago. Could be. And it comes full circle. Wait, no, it doesn't. I talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. I said maybe I'd draft him later, and I almost did, but I passed on him. So never mind. Forget I said anything. Tyrell Williams was not, because I was talking about Hawk way back when I drafted him in the 3rd round. Yeah. Still 2 Lions pass catchers. Something I never thought I'd do this year. But it's 16 teams. What are we at here? The top of the 14th round. So, oh man, what have we got? 16 times 16. Math. You can do it, Gavin. That's not right. I'm not even gonna try. I'm just gonna use my calculator because I'm not trying to make a fool of myself on here. I know it's got to be dang near 200 picks. Yeah, 256. So I'm glad I didn't try, because that would have just been disappointing. I guess literally, yeah, 16 rounds times 10 picks is 160. So it definitely had to be way over 200 picks. It's been a long day, guys. It's all right. We're getting through the draft. 2 rounds left. I've addressed every position in the starting lineup. I'd like to add some more wide receiver depth because those are going to be the players that I don't have the running back depth here. No team in this league really does. I should probably pick a couple more quality handcuff options. Maybe I go out and take a Benny Snell if he's still there. Let's just look. Because that would be a big loss. If I lost Najee Harris, I would need Benny Snell. Why is... Sleeper has depth charts for us. So why is... Anthony McFarland is actually... Sheesh. What happened to Benny Snell, guys? Holy cow. Anthony McFarland's explosive, so he might still be there. There he is. All right. The 279. We can still grab him. And then Austin Eckler. Maybe those will just be my last 2 picks. Pretty simple. Adds insurance to my draft picks. Technically, Justin Jackson is the number 2 stringer, the handcuff. But I just like Josh Kelly's involvement. We saw games last year where early on, Justin Jackson was out of the lineup, and Josh Kelly was getting 20-plus carries per game, 20-plus touches per game. He's not an elite talent. He's missing a lot of, flash from his game, but he can just go in there and get you some quality numbers. 111 attempts last year is pretty nice for a rookie and a guy who's not even supposed to be starting. So, I don't know. You see they're only separated in ADP by 5 picks. I think Jackson's a little bit injury prone. I love his smooth rushing style, but I'd rather bet it on the guy too, who Josh Kelly, if there's any goal line vulture in this offense, it's him. He's the guy that comes in here and steals production from not only Eckler, but Jackson too. So like I said, Josh Kelly's not all that great of a talent, but his role on the offense in the eye test last year was pretty encouraging. So we'll probably go that route again. I'm going to take Anthony McFarland, though, before I miss out on him. No one's going to take these players from me, but, I mean, were I not to go this route, Elijah Mitchell and Wayne Gallman have nice roles because they're playing for an offense that has a committee style and basically runs rampant through running backs. But after that, Carlos Hyde, supposedly, according to Urban Meyer, is involved in his 1-2 punch with James Robinson, but that's not even considering ETN in the picture there. I'd be a fool to say that ETN's not going to take any handoffs this year, even if he might be a more prominent pass catcher. And then Todd Gurley's not on the team. Samaje Perine. I think Chris Evans will just take over that number 2 role in Cincinnati, and I think Chris Evans might actually get some action this year of Joe Mixon. I've went through phases. Joe Mixon is such a toxic fantasy player. I've been I started this offseason so excited about Joe Mixon. I was like, I'm ready to be hurt again. Come get me. I want to draft Joe Mixon. Top end RB2, low end RB1. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, sorry, can't do. This offensive line didn't get all that much better. They drafted some players, but that doesn't mean they're going to have an immediate impact. Chris Evans, I love his play style. And as a player who has kind of a complete game out of Michigan, he was a late draft pick, but I think he might just come in here. He's behind Tyrell Williams still, but he's not really a huge threat to production. I'll just take these 2 running backs here. I did what I said, just stuck to 1 tight end today. Even in these deep leagues, we'll take a peek at the free agent crop here just to kind of show you, O.J. Howard's still there. He could be viable. Dan Arnold's the starter in Carolina. That's a name I forgot about. Dalton Schultz could technically still win the starting job for the Cowboys. Jimmy Graham might just score you some touchdowns here and there. Chris Herndon's still a starter. Jack Doyle gets in the mix in Indianapolis. Who is the starter for them technically? Jack Doyle. So there you go. Definitely not an elite producer, but the point being here is that even in a 16-team league, there's still players that have viable value. So you can find your streaming options still. Chances are that when players break out on the waiver wire, tight ends are going to be the first, backup tight ends, that is, are going to be the first positions dropped to go snatch up that value at other spots. So you're going to have your pick of the crop there in terms of the free agent waiver wire options. I got my guy. I believe in him. But I think at the end of the day, the rest of my lineup, by not picking tight end, got that much farther ahead of the competition and is able to assert itself as an advantage over other groups in the league. So, and on top of that, hang on here. I forget the whole time that I drafted freaking TJ Hawkinson in the, man, I just, it's been a long week. That's all I got to say about that. All right, so now this is a 16-team league, so I went to 2 tight ends, rather. And I feel very good about my backup. I would feel fine with my backup as my starter. Let's see, did I miss out by... So I feel like I have a positional advantage absolutely 100% with Hawkinson at the 316. Who would I have missed out on by taking Evan Ingram? T.Y. Hilton? Man, okay, so maybe I would have rather had Amon-Ra St. Brown here, but then I wouldn't have wanted to go Tyrell Williams later and taken 3 pass catchers for the Lions. Man, I talked about T.J. Hawkinson 4 times throughout the course of the mock draft board, and then I still, at the end of the day, forgot I drafted him. But this 7 rounds of separation between my tight end picks in an extremely deep league. Evan Ingram's one of the later round picks in a 12-team league, which is what we typically do here. I think it's fine. See how many teams took 3 tight ends. That'll be interesting. 1, 2, okay, 2, 2, 2, 3. Okay, so literally 1 team took 3 tight ends. Everyone else took 2. It's pretty standard. Did anyone take 1? No, it looks like everybody took... Sorry, guys. I'm probably just driving you crazy scrolling up and down. Yeah, so it looks like every team took at least 2. 1 team took 3 tight ends. That's fair. That's viable. I can give 2 tight ends a pass in a 16-team league. And like I said, I think a lot of those second tight ends, even in particular, if Mo Alley Cox, O.J. Howard, Brevin Jordan, Pat Freiermuth, Dawson Knox, Blake Jarwin, Tim Tebow, Eric Ebron, Austin Hooper, These are all names of guys I'm just tossing out there. They've all got upside. They've all got their arguments to be made why they could be a lineup piece, why they might be on your roster, why they might not be. But not all those guys are going to hit. So some of them are just going to end up back on the waiver wire, and there's a chance you find them in a good matchup, stream them, boom, they score a touchdown. They pretty much gave you what you're looking for. So I don't know. I have such a love-hate relationship with tight ends right now. It's like those top 6 tight ends I just love so much, and the advantage they give you at that spot. But after that, you're just kind of taking risky dart throws. If Evan Ingram is a miss again and doesn't produce what we expect from him, or can hope for, I should say, because clearly as a 10th round pick in a 16-team league, there's not too much expectation for him. But hopefully, at the end of the day, he does meet that. If he doesn't, though, he becomes just like the rest of them. You drop him. It's as simple as that. That's what tight ends turn into at this point. I would love to see more guys become more consistent producers. But if we don't see that happen, it's just going to be the tight end recycle committee here. And that's what fantasy football turns into by midseason. Because 6 or 7 guys establish themselves as that year's top producers. And the rest of the guys, you just hope for to score touchdowns. So it was a long video today. A lot of picks on the board. A lot of teams in here. 16 of them to be exact. We really went all out in today's video. Oh, okay. Never mind. I'm going crazy, guys. So I scrolled, and then I was like, oh, there's another team that took 3 tight ends. And back to the whole tight end shebang. But we'll dismiss that for now. So at the end of the day, I think my draft turned out pretty good. I would be interested to hear what you guys think about it down in the comment section below. There's certainly places where I think I went very, very good on the draft board. I don't love how the quarterback position turned out. In retrospect, I probably would have passed on Evan Ingram there and went with a rookie receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown or Rondale Moore. But I goofed. That one's on me. Not much else to say about that. Yesterday, we went super tight end light, didn't draft one. And then in today's video, we went a little bit tight end heavy for my liking. But again, back to the scoring format and the league size, it's somewhat justifiable. And every other team has 2 tight ends too. So I'm not too worried about feeling like I over dipped at the position there, especially letting seven rounds of 16 go off in between the board. But Fitzmagic isn't the best QB1, I'll say that. He is a sleeper in my draft guide, but he also has a very risky and shaky floor. I loved my first 2 round picks. I think that's where we started off today's video at an excellent level with Austin Eckler and Najee Harris. And then Robert Woods and Robbie Anderson as top 2 wide receivers aren't exactly elite options, but in full PPR leagues, I do like what they give me. I think TJ Hawkinson, you've got a positional advantage here with the running backs, and I think that the tight end spot has that as well with Hawk. He's going to be a target monster. Will he be the most efficient guy in the world, give you the most yards per catch, and be the most impressive tight end this year? Probably not. He might miss a couple games. He's been injured here and there throughout his career. But I think he's still a top 4 tight end this fantasy season. I think he finishes better than a Kyle Pitts. Hot take, but I'll say it. I think that Kyle Pitts' floor is riskier than we realize, and I think that TJ Hawkinson's floor is a lot better than people realize. So, and then Trey Sermon, Rashad Bateman, 2 rookie picks. I like the upside here. I think those could be big-time players late in the season. The Cardinals, again, I like my defenses with my pass rush, and we waited on them early. Darnell Mooney, Jacoby Myers, Tyrell Williams are really nice sleeper wide receiver prospects. I think Darnell Mooney is kind of sliding himself out of the sleeper role and more into a low-end starter role because I think he's getting a little bit more talk and conversation and acknowledgement to what he can be. Evan Ingram, again, the forgotten child. Well, actually, TJ Hawkinson's the forgotten child of today's mock, as I forgot I drafted him. And then I think that when I drafted Evan Ingram, I was like, all right, I think it's time to take a tight end here. And yeah, that was a boneheaded thing by me there. Derek Carr is my second quarterback, like literally the complete opposite of Fitzmagic. Fitzmagic gives me a crazy high ceiling and not much of a floor. I think Fitzmagic has punch for punch the best ceiling of fantasy football with other players. Like, he's not going to hit it very often, but he certainly can. Look back at Miami Dolphins Fitzmagic. Look back at Tampa Bay Fitzmagic. He's got the juice. He can give you 5 touchdown passes in a given week, especially with deep threats like McLaurin and Samuel who can just get it done. Derek Carr is not that player, but he is a guy that you can ask for 16, 17 points and feel like, yeah, he's got a 65, 70% chance of hitting those markers. He's probably not going to crack 20 points too often. The line is not as good as it has been in the past. The receivers are big question marks, but they've got upside as well. Bryan Edwards, Henry Ruggs, John Brown, Hunter Renfro's, whatever. And then Anthony McFarland and Josh Kelly, simple insurance policies. I think the only real starting threats we have at running back are Eckler, Harris, and Sermon. So we're very top heavy, and Trey Sermon might not start right away. So this lineup would probably look like very wide receiver heavy early on. That's the nature of these 16-team leagues. You're not going to see groups walk out here and start 3 or 4 running backs in a given week when the group is so thin and there's not that many quality options. It's probably going to be a lot of 2 running backs, 3 at most in starting lineups in these deeper leagues with a lot of wide receiver help. That's just simply because there's depth there and upside that goes a lot. It just runs deeper on the board. So, yeah, McFarland, Kelly, their depth plays. Those are players that you're going to look at as options simply if the starter gets hurt, and that's basically why I addressed them in today's video. I'm not picking either of those players in smaller league formats or in situations where I can get myself some more depth at running back. So that'll do it for today's video. Our first ever 16-team mock draft here on the channel. It was a longer episode, but if you stuck with me here, thank you so much. We've got a lot of cool stuff going on right now. Again, you can hop into these mock drafts. I've got mock draft Monday. You'll be seeing that tomorrow. Hopefully we'll fill that up in the Discord chat. So if you're watching this today, hop in there. You have a chance to get in there before that's over and done with. Otherwise, you'll just be waiting until next Saturday's mock draft. And then we've got some cool stuff going on right now on the SFS shop, on our merchandise store. I'm not wearing any merch right now, but we've got some discounts going on right now. And we've got a special code in the community Discord that you can take advantage of there to get I think it's 10% off. So thank you all again so much for watching. If you stick with me here through the entire thing, I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.